Hello, I don't know what's happened to my camera angle, why it's doing this, what's changed. I've no idea. I'm just gonna go along with it for now, for this one. Holiday books, or rather the books I found on holiday. I always come back to that thing of the second-hand shops in seaside towns for some reason, always being a particularly good source of vintage second-hand books. Now, most of these I found in Harlech in Gwynedd, North Wales. I wasn't actually staying there, but I had a rainy day to kill yesterday. And there's rain and then there's North Wales rain, Gogledd rain. And I thought, all right, I'm not going to do some hillside walk or anything. I'll go and see what's in Harlech. A lot of rain in Harlech as well. Also, I had to climb a hill. It's weird. I've been through it many times. I'd never stopped off there before, and I had no idea about the geography of the place. The main centre of town, you've got to go up a hill, so it makes sense because if you're going to have a big castle, you need it on a hill, lower bit. So it's not debatable whether you'd call it a seaside town. There's kind of a flat stretch, I suppose, before the sea really starts. I did get a good sort of, not an aerial view, but a sort of, high vantage point view. I didn't go in the castle as it happens, but there's a little park near there where you get a good view. But also, I got a reminder of a book I've meant to pick up. I haven't yet. The Mabinogion, which is this collection of, I suppose, Welsh folklore or Welsh legend. And right on the sort of top bit of Harlech, there's this reminder, there's a statue inspired by one of the Mabinogion tales. It's very grim indeed. It's a statue of Bran the Blessed, not to be confused with Brian the Blessed. And in this statue, he's got his dead nephew strapped to the back of the horse. So that's cheery. So I'm kind of still putting that one off, but I do mean to pick up maybe even a bilingual copy of the Mabinogion. See how I get along with that. But anyway, it didn't happen on this occasion, but it turned out there are, there's a few interesting little second-hand outlets. Some of them of that sort of slightly antique-y nature, but there's that sort of obligatory stack of books in them. So first off, I didn't even know he wrote books. Oh, did a double take at that? Oh, really? I had no idea. But there it is. Mr. Death in Venice did some novels. I think from the 80s, this one. No idea what to expect of that, but impulse purchase and everything. And also, now this is a Saki. It's one of those names, if you read the same kind of horror anthologies I read, that name would always come up. There'd always be a Saki amongst them. The packaging, the presentation of this isn't particularly horror bookish in the conventional. Mind you, it's quite weird. I don't know what's going on in that picture, but in the conventional sense, it's not the most typical horror book packaging. But, Odd Tales, excuse me, coconut, rum and pineapple. He thinks he's still on holiday. Now, the rest of them, this wasn't intentional. It's just the selections that I stumbled over. There's sort of military theme going on here. So, first off, the novelisation of MASH by Richard Hooker. I've never read that one before. I do remember the series. It was one, kind of obligatory viewing back when I was a kid. Next, now I could hardly turn down that title, could I? This concerns itself with OCTU. I don't off the top of my head know what that is or was. As being neither rank and file soldiers nor commissioned officers, the cadets flounder in a sort of twilight world. Clay in the hands of their sergeants, they are pushed, prodded and square bashed into shape till a final glazing of... Is it just my mind? It's your mind as well. A glazing of swank. Next. This one out of the whole pile, this is the one I've actually got some way into already. I've never heard of this before, but the cover sold it to me. The Privileged Nightmare by Romilly and Alexander. Now, on closer inspection, this looks like a sort of classic case of... I'll do my best Prussian officer impersonation here. What is your name? Don't tell him, Churchill's nephew. That's who Romilly was. Yeah, this is from the viewpoint of two, as the Germans called them, Prominentieren or something like that. They were people who were considered to have had connections, who found themselves in German custody during the Second World War. Romilly being, yes, Churchill's nephew. He'd been a journalist and found himself out in Narvik in Norway when it all kicked off there. So and Alexander, I think, related to the Desert War general, I think it is. Anyway, they both find themselves in, guess where? Colditz. So actually very, very readable, very interesting reading actually. It sort of does give a rather particular window into the time. Their respective interactions with their captors are quite revealing, I think. I forget which of the two of them it is, but they get in together. They do get to know or establish a bit of a rapport with certain of their custodians, or the people who are charged with keeping them prisoner. And it's commented how striking it is that one of them, he comes to sort of know him as a pretty intelligent man, but he's still struck by how just how unthinkingly he's bought into the narrative of there's this kind of uncritical buy-in, Hitler's words, on the part of this guy, and it's commented on by one, I think it's Romilly, who's commented on by one of them in here. Yes, I'm about almost halfway through this one. I picked it up yesterday, so that's not bad going. But also some First World War related stuff. Now, I've never come across this one, or certainly not read it before. Described here is and always will be not only a noble memoir of the 1418 war, but a profound and truthful picture of the ordinary Englishman standing up to the perennial ordeal of war. Very well spoken of in the reviews I've scanned so far. Again, it's how my mind works, I suppose, but did they have to call it that? I gather that's a line from Shakespeare, which is no proof against smut in itself, but yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want to be that guy who reads cheap innuendo into First World War tributes. I already have, haven't I? Which is a good appetizer for a vintage copy of Privates on Parade. No, I'm joking. Another First World War tribute, Dennis Winter's Death's Men, which is a bit more sensibly titled, I suppose. Dennis Winter has taken the First World War away from the politicians and generals and given it back to the men who fought it, and through their words, to us. Who's it, Gerald Brennan in a letter to, I would say this is a long way the best general book I have read on this war. Now, obviously I've timed this, 6 months away from Remembrance Sunday, so, my timing is a bit off here, but, most of these have looked like they got a bit of potential anyway. So it wasn't as, I did hope to find more trash, if you know what I mean, but, you just have to go with what you find on these little random excursions, so I don't think that's a bad little haul really. There was the option to pick up some railway related stuff as well, but my shelves are rather groaning at the moment. But so yes, that's that for this one. Thank you as ever for joining me, and I do hope we will catch up soon.